I'm John Garagosian. I want to welcome you to today's events. Normally, we'd be welcoming you all to the state capitol. Unfortunately, we all know nothing has been normal this year. Hopefully next year we'll all be meet together back again at the capitol. This year we're going to begin with our Martyrs Service, and I would like to introduce Reverend Father Unsag Albanian of the Armenian Church of Holy Ascension in Trumbull.
Good morning, Martyrs. In 2015, the centennial of the 1915 Armenian Genocide, the Armenian Church hierarchy canonized the martyrs of the Armenian Genocide. In past decades, the Armenian Church leadership and Armenians all over the world focused on the canonization of our martyrs. The right time was the 100th anniversary, and all joyfully welcomed this decision. The special service was prepared, which we will be doing shortly, to replace the Requiem service conducted every April 24, the day when the Ottoman Turkish government gathered and massacred all the intellectuals, clergy, and lay leaders of the Armenian community. And of course, to this followed the massacres of 1.5 million Armenians, and the rest were deported to the Syrian deserts. As most services in the Armenian Church, this service begins with the Lord's Prayer. The late Archbishop Zare Aznavourian wrote the new hymn, "Astonished and appalled were the heavenly armies." Archbishop Aznavourian, taking into the consideration the persecuted history of the Armenians, questions God and quotes from the book of Revelation, chapter 6, verse 10. Sovereign Lord, holy and true, how long will it be until you judge and seek the justice and judgment? Following the hymn is a reading from St. Paul's epistle to the Hebrews, by which Paul reassures them that even though they went through persecutions and sufferings, those who have faith are never lost, but will be saved. Then follows the gospel reading from John chapter 14, where Jesus says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son," something which the Armenian people have done for the past 2,000 years. The second hymn calls the holy martyrs as witnesses, who sacrifice their lives for their faith, adding, "May they be a holy sacrifice with the Lord, so that we may be kept always safe and secure." Following is the ascription, or in Armenian we call it Mahtang, sung by a priest who beseeches Christ for the sake of the Holy Mother of God, John the Baptist, St. Stephen, the apostles, prophets, martyrs, St. Thaddeus and Bartholomew, St. Gregory the Enlightener, the heads of the churches, to grant peace to us. Also through the intercession of the 1915 Armenian Genocide martyrs, who gave their lives for their faith and homeland, we ask for the gift of peace and Christ's mercy. The service ends with a priest reciting the prayer, "Christ our God, who crowns his saints with victory and who does the will of all who fear him and and hears the prayers of all saints, especially the holy martyrs of the Armenian Genocide. May the memory of the righteous be blessed, Ishadag, Artarot, Ortutiam Biagitsi, and may we honor all our martyred saints by renewing our faith in Christ and our commitment to the Church, whose faithful members all our martyrs were.
Ortnial der mer Jesus Christos, Amen. Այր մեր, որ ելգինս ես, Սուրբ Եղիցյանն քո, եղես ծառքայություն քո, եղիցին գամ քո, որպես ելգինս եվերգրի, ըսած մեր հանավազոր դուր մեզ այսօր, երկող մեզ բարդիս մեր որպես և մեր թող վերոց բարդավանած, և մի դանիրս մեզի փորձություն այլ պրգայի չարե, զիկոյ արքայություն և զորություն և փառք ավիդյանս, Ամեն։
Եվ ևս խաղաղությանս դեր աղաչեցու գնգալգեցո և ողորմյա։
Օրդություն և փառքոր և որդքո և ողքույն սրբո, այժմ և միշտ և ավիդյանս ավիդենից, Ամեն։
The reading is from the letter of Apostle Paul to Hebrews. But recall these earlier days when after you had been enlightened, you endured a hard struggle with sufferings, sometimes being publicly exposed to abuse and persecution, and sometimes being partners with those who treated so. For you had compassion for those who were in prison, and you cheerfully accepted the plundering of your possessions, knowing that you yourself possessed something better and more lasting. Do not therefore abandon that confidence of yours. It brings a great reward. For you need endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what was promised. For yet, in a very little while, the one who is coming will come and will not delay. But my righteous one will live by faith. My soul takes no pleasure in anyone who shrinks back. But we are not among those who shrink back and so are lost, but among those who have faith and so are saved.
Alleluia, alleluia, ansag megentur yeventur, yevaneres mezi hankis, alleluia orti.
Amamutyun amenetzon, Sărpo avedaranis Iisusi Christosi borus povano. Parques de rastvos
Omen.
ase astvos. Thus says our Lord Jesus Christ. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you I go to prepare a place for you?
And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will also come again and take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also, and you know the way to the place where I am going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you know me, you will know my Father also. From now on, you know him and have seen him. Philip said to him, Lord, show us the Father, and we will be satisfied. Jesus said to him, Have I been with you all this time, Philip, and still you do not know me? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. How can you?
Martyrs Service, Ջքնավորած կուսանանց, միացնանց և երկնային զորացն, ըստ խաղաղություն քո տուր մեզ Տեր։
For the sake of your holy apostles, prophets, teachers, martyrs, heads of churches, hermits, nuns, solitaries, and the heavenly powers, Lord, grant us peace.
Եվ ասն աղքին լուսավորչացր մերոց, Թադյոսի և Պարդոմյոսի, և Սրբոց Հակոբյանց և Չալիկ Առաքելոցը, Եփիսկոպոսի եւ Գևորգա Զորավարի, բարեխոսությամբ իշատակավ եւ աղոթյուկ, սրբոց նատակացն, որ կատարեցավ հնդածս հայոց ցեղասպանությամբ, վասն հավատով եւ վասն այրենյաց, որոնց այսօր է իշատակ, ըստ Եվս մեծ ողորմություն, քո պարգևյան ես մարդասեր Տեր։
For the sake of our first enlighteners, the apostles, Saints Thaddeus and Bartholomew, and of the blessed apostles, Saints James and of Saint Gregory our enlightener, and of Saints James the Bishop of Nisibis, Maruge the Hermit, Melidos the Bishop, and George the Captain, through their intercession, memory, and prayers of the holy martyrs who have perfected their lives during the Armenian Genocide for faith and the homeland, whom we commemorate today, grant us the gift of peace and of your great mercy.
Amen. Surճգնավորոք նավաչես ու գզդեր, որ գշարսն բարդեցին, դեղության կամպերեցին, լուսեղեն և եկնային անթարան բեսագացն արջանի եղեն, աղոթյուկ նոցա և հարեղոսության մեզ ողորմեցին, ամենագալ դրացված մեր գեցո և ողորմյա. Let us beseech the Lord through the prayers of the holy martyrs who defeated evil and endured anguish and became worthy of the luminous, heavenly, and everlasting crowns. Through their prayers and intercession, may the Lord have mercy on us and raise us to life.
Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. Christ our God, you crown your saints with triumph, and you do the will of all who fear you, looking after your creatures with love and kindness. Hear us from your holy and heavenly realm by the intercession of the Holy Mother of God and by the prayers of all your saints, especially the holy martyrs who gave their lives during the 1915 Armenian Genocide for faith and for the homeland. Hear us, Lord, and show us your mercy. Forgive, redeem, and pardon our sins. Make us worthy thankfully to glorify you with the Father and with the Holy Spirit, now and always and unto the ages of ages. Amen. Besagich Sepot Christos, որ բսագես սուրբս քո եւ առնեսս գամս եւ յուղացած քոց եւ նայիս սիրով եւ խաղաղությամբ հարարածս քո լուր մեզ հերգնից իսրկութենեքում մե հարեխոսությամբ սուրբ աստվածածնին եւ աղաչանոք ամենայն սրբոց քոց եւ սրբոց նահատակածն որ կդարեցան հնդածս հայոց ցեղասպանության վասն հավատով եւ վասն հայրենյաց լուր մեզ դեր եւ ողորմյա ներյա կավյա եւ թողս մեղս մեր արժանավորյա կողության փառավորելս քեզ ընթոր եւ սուրբ ոգույտ այժմ եւ միշտ եւ ավիդյանս ավիդենից ամեն ամեն.
Typical Zoom issue, right? So let me start again. It's so wonderful to see so many familiar faces again. Many important things have happened since we last met in 2019. At this moment in the quest for the full recognition of the genocide, I'm reminded of one of Martin Luther King's famous quotes. Let us realize that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Over the past couple of years, Armenians have achieved some measures of justice related to the genocide recognition. The congressional resolutions and President Biden's anticipated recognition of the genocide are goals we have all worked toward for many years. At this moment, I can't help but think about all the people who planned and attended events like this. I also think about those who wrote, called, and emailed political leaders. Hopefully, these accomplishments will provide us all an opportunity to decide what comes next and what new goals to pursue. The committee worked extremely hard to put together a wonderful program today. I'd like to introduce the committee members. They are Richard Armenian, Svetlana Babajanian, Melanie Kevorkian-Brown, Diana Dagavarian-Kolpitz, Judge Evelyn Mukchian-Daly, Professor Mari Ferkatian, Reverend Father Voski Galstian, Sonia Gulbank, Richard Hamasian, Kit Kaloyan, Professor Armin Marsubian, Attorney Harry Mazadurian, Reverend Father Unsag Nabanian, Attorney Greg Norsigian, David Paparian, Deacon Michael Sabunjian, who's been invaluable on the technical side of this program. Good to have young people around. Rita Savajian, Reverend Father Aram Stepanian, and Reverend Father Garabed Tavayan. As always, we welcome anybody who would like to join the committee and participate in this event and other events that we will work on. First, I have to go over a few of the Zoom rules for today. All participants have been muted when entering the call. We ask that you remain muted throughout the program unless you are a designated speaker. The chat feature should only be utilized for questions for the speakers. Please refrain from making other comments. One of the positive things about doing this call via Zoom this year is that former committee member and longtime MC of this event, George Ristikian, and his wife Barbara are joining us today, and I'd like to give them a special shout out and tell them we miss them both very much. The war in Artsakh is another tragedy our community faced this year. The committee decided to direct this year's fundraising efforts for the families of Artsakh. I would like to introduce our committee chair, Melanie Kevorkian-Brown, to talk more about this effort.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. Our fundraising this year is in support of those relocating from Artsakh to Armenia. Through FAR, Fund for Armenian Relief, we are supporting their project where they acquire abandoned farms in the southern Armenia city of Sisyan. The houses are renovated and families are settled to work the land and raise cattle or poultry to generate income and provide a means to sustain themselves. We are very pleased to report that through your generous contributions, a total of $3,765 was raised to date. We sincerely thank you for your generosity and support and know those funds will be put to very productive use. Back to you, John.
Thanks again. We'll now move to the Armenian and American national anthems. I'd like to send special thanks to the Capitol Police for raising the flag early. The flag has been raised over the Capitol for the last few weeks, and it's wonderful to see. I'd also like to thank the clergy and the choirs from all 4 churches for their participation. Now, we've been fortunate to have a dedicated legislative sponsor for this event. Representative Edwin Vargas has been ready and willing to help us in any way, and for that, we are very grateful. I've known Ed Vargas for many years. He is a wonderful legislator, educator, and historian who cares deeply about social justice. We can't thank him enough for his help in adopting the Armenian community in Connecticut. I especially want to thank Milagros Acosta from Representative Vargas's office, who I see on the call today, who has always been a tremendous help to us. We welcome them both as honorary Armenians. I would like to introduce Representative Edwin Vargas.
I remember when you and your close associate, David Pudlin, may he rest in peace, were there fighting here in the legislative body for the people of Connecticut. And I salute you on all your great work and now on your work as state auditor. I know you had a great loss there with your associate who passed away, Bob Kane, great guy. I just like to say that my close association community began a long time ago in 1973 at the high school when I became friends with George Norsegian, passed away many years ago. And he involved me in the Armenian community and, educated me as to the issues involving Armenians. And since then, I've had a very close relationship with the Armenian community. It's been my honor to have been the legislative sponsor for this event for the last several years. And as long as I can, I will continue to do everything I can. This year, I introduced a resolution to place Connecticut on record in support of ARTSAC. Unfortunately, that resolution did not go forward. There was a lot of pressure, and I don't know, from where or how, but the resolution was stuck in committee. But we'll try again, and we need up on these issues. And I also wanted to shout out to my good friend, the son, George Norsegian, who was my colleague in working while he was working with the Human Resources Department at the Hartford Board of Education while I was union teachers union, that we were able to get together for a couple of people that are well deserving. And I also wanted to thank my legislative aide, Milagros Acosta, for all her hard work in making sure that we're able to hold this event annually. And hopefully next year we'll be doing it at the Hall of the House, as has been a long standing tradition of this commemoration celebration. First citation is of your part in the Connecticut Armenian Genocide Commemoration, and he'll make sure that you receive it. And we have a second citation for an equally deserving individual also involved in journalism. This one is for Tatul Habokian, and it says, in recognition of your participation in Connecticut's 2021 Armenian Genocide Commemoration, we appreciate your long career dedicated to telling the Armenian story. We congratulate you on your many noted accomplishments in journalism. Best wishes for your continued success. And I guess we are moving forward on the journalistic front. I recently read an editorial by the Boston Globe encouraging President Biden to recognize the genocide officially and place the United States on record. So whatever all these dedicated Armenian journalists are doing, keep up the good work. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Representative Vargas. It's good to see you again, too. And thank you for your kind words.
It's always a pleasure.
Normally, we recognize dignitaries who have joined us. I see a few on the call. I'd like to recognize former President Richard Judd of Central Connecticut State University and former Newington Mayor Roy Zartarian. As I said in my opening remarks, since we last met, the Congress acknowledged the Armenian genocide. And to talk a little bit more about that, I'd like to introduce Attorney Harry Mazadorian for a special acknowledgement of our congressional delegation.
Thank you, John. As we have been commemorating the Armenian genocide for these many decades, one of our objectives has been to make others outside the Armenian American community, especially the US government, more keenly aware of the atrocities, the importance of recognizing the atrocities as genocide and condemning them. With few exceptions, that recognition has not come. But as John alluded to in his opening comments, since the date of our last commemoration, which took place in April of 2019, both houses of Congress, the House through House Resolution 296 and the Senate through Senate Resolution 150, unequivocally stated that it is the sense of Congress that it be the policy of the United States to do so. I would urge you to seek out the actual resolutions. They are remarkable documents. In addition to the resolutions themselves, they contain fantastic history as to the background of the Armenian genocide and why it is essential that it be recognized as such. The resolutions first commemorated the Armenian genocide through official recognition and remembrances. Secondly, the resolutions, and this is so critical, rejected efforts to enlist, engage, or otherwise associate the United States with denial of the Armenian genocide or any other genocide. And finally, the resolutions encouraged education, public understanding of the facts of the Armenian genocide, including the United States' role in the great humanitarian relief effort and the relevance of the Armenian genocide to modern day crimes against humanity. We thank the United States Congress and especially our entire Connecticut delegation in both houses for this historic and courageous action. We have sent a formal citation of thanks together with a commemorative forget-me-not pin to each member, but wanted to proclaim our thanks today publicly and loudly. However, we hope the story does not end there. We hope there will come more to the recognition of the genocide. Today, we are poised to hear word from our president as to his position on the genocide. We have had anticipation of a recognition, and perhaps before our program is concluded today, we will learn more. John started with a reference to the Reverend Martin Luther King, and I'd like to conclude with another reference by Dr. Martin Luther King, and one which was highlighted in former Ambassador Evans' book. Dr. King said, "At the end, we remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And we hope that today, the entire United States government will end that silence." Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. I keep looking down at my iPad because I have the White House homepage on and keep refreshing it, looking for the statement that we hope will come forward. As I said, the committee put together an excellent program today, and we're going to have our first speaker, and I would like to call on Melody Kevorkian-Brown to introduce our first speaker.
Sorry about that. Okay. Thank you, John. Our speakers this year will be providing their personal accounts on the recent war in Artsakh. As you have any questions for our speakers, please use the chat feature in Zoom and indicate to which speaker the question is directed. Our speakers will respond to questions once they have both completed their prepared talks. Our first speaker today is Lily Taroshian. Lily is a first-generation New Englander, most recently from Connecticut, who spent the past 6 months in Armenia, having arrived there 2 days before the Artsakh War began in September 2020. While there, she connected with several families from the displaced regions and volunteered in various capacities, teaching English to teenagers from Artsakh and translating documents for the Ministry of Education. For 3 years, she was assistant project manager of HPEM, Hamatz Kain's online platform to engage young diasporans in Armenian art and culture, and has previously written for the Armenian Weekly newspaper. She currently writes for EVN Report in Armenia. She holds a master's degree in human rights from University College London and a bachelor's degree in international relations from Boston University, where she served on the ASA Executive Board. It is with pleasure that I present Lily Taroshian.
Thank you, Melanie. First, I'd like to thank the committee, Father Voski especially, for reaching out to me, asking me to speak on this very solemn, sacred occasion. And thank you to everyone tuning in. So, as Melanie said, my name is Lily. I was born in Massachusetts, but I grew up here in Connecticut. My parents were from Armenia, and I'd visit often growing up. So as an Armenian American, there have been two pivotal dates in my life, April 24th and September 11th. I was 9 years old when the Twin Towers fell. The summer before that was my first trip to Armenia that I can recall. It was a new nation, just a decade old, building itself. Armenia was born in September 1991. I was born June 1992, 9 months later. I like to tell people that Armenia and I were conceived at the same time. So while Armenia is very ancient, it is also a millennial on the world stage. There's so much work to do, as we know, but there's a vibrancy to it. So it drew me in. So after 6 months of quarantining here in Connecticut, I decided to relocate to Armenia, arriving on September 25th. Timing has never been my strong suit because, as we all know, on September 27th, the entire line of contact in Artsakh was attacked. War had begun. Comparisons should always be taken with a grain of salt, but in terms of just reported casualties per capita, the 2020 Artsakh War yielded 200 times the impact of 9/11. Imagine this tiny landlocked nation surrounded by genocidal neighbors, enduring 4.5 9/11s every day for 44 days on it in the midst of a global pandemic. These are shocking. But of course, the genocide is not defined by statistics alone, but the individual stories and collective humanity of those 1.5 million lives. So too were the 5,000 plus martyred in this war and all those who experienced it on their skin. There are many stories that I could share. During the war, I had countless discussions with my fellow repat friends who, like me, asked themselves every day, should we go back to our Western countries where it is safe, or stay here with our compatriots? We planned what would happen if telecommunications were shut down throughout the country, if the airports closed and we couldn't leave, whose house would become our bomb shelter if the war came to Yerevan. The discussions with my relatives in Armenia were not as open. I'd never seen them so worried. Over the years, throughout various visits to Armenia, my aunts and uncles would always tell me to move, to settle down in the homeland. Not this time. See, I had an American passport, the golden ticket out, and no one could understand my desire to stay, not even me. So why did I? That's a question I still ask myself, and I think the answer lies in the stories, some of which I will share with you today. Admittedly, the war days were a blur. No one slept. Many of us had nightmares. The sound of Russian military planes flying overhead at all hours of the day and night, or anything but comforting. We're all familiar with the "Hachteluenk" or "We will win" slogan. It was everywhere. Phone companies even changed their service provider names on our phones to the hashtag. Instead of daily specials, cafes would write the number of enemy drones we downed and casualties we inflicted the day before. Armenia had never truly felt more like a bubble to me. Morale was tenuous, ominous, and the rest of the world seemed to ignore the Armenian plight once more. The second week of the war, my friends and I visited a camp that was sheltering displaced women and children. We played games and my friends performed music. It was the first time we saw smiles on the faces of these children, though the moms still looked worried. Unfortunately, soon after our entire COVID, I spent about a third of the war in isolation in my little apartment in Yerevan, watching the war play out, literally outside my window, but on a screen, like the rest of the diaspora. Mid-October, I received a message from one of my dear Turkish friends who lives in the UK. It was the screenshot of a text message she had just received from the Turkish Red Crescent in Turkish, asking for donations for Brother Azerbaijan for the war effort. If you ask anyone in Armenia, they all will tell you that one defining moment when they just knew it was over, that was the moment for me. But still, the slogans continued, the volunteering efforts ramped up, and people continued doing the best they knew how. 3 days after the war ended, my friends and I drove to Artsakh to see Dadivank, the 13th century Armenian monastery perched atop the most luscious hills in Karvajar, or Kelvajar as it's known in Turkish. We could scarcely believe that it was to be ceded to Azerbaijan in 2 days' time. The roads on the way there were littered with deep potholes, remnants of the war, and the smell of burning rubber and hazy skies. The 3 days we were in Artsakh, I don't recall the sun coming out once. Dadivank was a sore sight. All of Yerevan, it seemed, was there that day. It was a zoo. There were people drilling khachkars, or cross stones, out of the walls in a frantic effort to preserve it from possible destruction. People were panicking to do what they could in whichever ways they knew how. As we were getting ready to leave, I overheard a soldier on the phone telling his mom, "Yes, I burned down our house." We just knew that we couldn't say farewell to these lands like this. So we headed to another church, Ganzasar, which was to remain in the safe zone. My friends sang there until it was too late to head back to Armenia. So we made our way to Stepanakert. The capital of Artsakh had virtually no civilians. Our experiences in Yerevan were mainly with displaced women and children, but here in the epicenter were soldiers, fathers of missing soldiers, and international journalists. The city's hotels were full, filthy, and staffless. Absolute chaos. My friends walked down the streets in the middle of the night, entering abandoned hotels and knocking on random doors to try to find somewhere for us to stay. At around 2 a.m., we migrated to a once luxury hotel with no Wi-Fi or hot water. There was a musky scent on the pillows. We found a soldier's uniform in the closet. On our second night, there was no electricity in the hotel. It had officially closed down. A soldier in another hotel gave us his room. he would sleep in his car that night. The weather was just above freezing. At around 10 p.m., he strolled in with a tray of lamb and a loaf of bread. How he did it is a mystery to me because there was no food to be found anywhere. The only sustenance in that hotel was tushonka, or canned meat, and the supermarkets were sparse. I remember smiling to myself, thinking how strong the Armenian hospitality gene must be to source fresh matnakash in the middle of a war zone. Most of the patrons in the hotel were fathers of missing soldiers. The first night we arrived, they asked, more like demanded, us to not sing. They were grieving. They didn't want music. They wanted news of their sons. The next day, they asked us to help them put together a list of their sons' names, ages, and where they were serving to present to the president of Artsakh during a meeting that morning. It was the first of many POW discussions to follow, which are still unfortunately continuing today, almost 6 months after the end of the war. On our third and final night, the fathers asked us to perform. Well, my friends did. My singing voice is one step short of a crime against humanity. For a few hours, we were weightless, swaddled by the notes of a song. That next morning, we returned to Yerevan with the news that one of the father's son's bodies had been identified. I was to attend the funeral, but my grandpa died of COVID the day before. The rest of the world was mourning the destruction of COVID, and for Armenia, the virus was a side character to this tragedy. Every day after the war was filled with many little reminders of the loss, the unquantifiable loss. I remember still so vividly when the Hachtedun hashtag was removed from my phone. My grandpa's funeral was the day before Karabakh was to be seated. The date had been delayed by 10 days. My uncle's toast alluded to the small blessing that we can toast to his life with our lands still intact, that he did not have to see this capitulation, this loss, this embarrassment. Another person toasted, he lived the lives of 4 martyred soldiers. You see, my grandpa was the son of genocide survivors from Sassoon, a land which I was privileged enough to visit myself 4 summers ago, and a land which lives on in many songs and dances, in our epics, our poems, paintings, and stories. And so I can't help but think that Artsakh will be the same. We will continue to sing love songs about a land which we no longer lay claim to, so that when the last refugee from Shushi passes on, a century from now, we can continue to feel a piece of that home. Like my friends singing to those fathers in the hotel, or to the soldiers in Karabakh on our way in, the folk tunes of our ancestors soothed us. Many days after the war, I did nothing but read poetry. I even posted some of my readings on social media in the months that followed. American poets like Bukowski and Sexton and Plath kept me company, kept me marginally sane. They were my therapy. And we need therapy. We need healing. I don't know anyone in Armenia who didn't lose someone in this war. At most, it was 2 degrees of separation. People will be reckoning with this devastation, this trauma, this pain for many years to come. And they will do it together. We will do it together. So you may ask, why did I stay? It's the same reason why I want to go back. Blessed be the memories of our martyrs from 1915 to 2020.
Thank you, Lily. That was a very moving presentation. And it touched all of us. I'm Armin Marsibian. Many of you know me from other prior commemorations of remembrance of the Armenian Genocide. I'm introducing the next speaker, who will be joining us from Yerevan, from Armenia. He is a long-established journalist in Armenia, Tatu Agopyan. His background begins in his journalism studies at Yerevan State. He is a reporter, an independent political analyst, and he specializes in the Karabakh or Artsakh issue and issues regarding Turkish and Armenian relations. He's the author of 3 books, The Karabakh Diary, Black and Green, Armenians and Turks, and his most recent book, The Valley of Death, The 44-Day Catastrophe. The 44 days refers to the war that Lily just described with her moving words. He is a correspondent for many newspapers, including Yerkir, Aztak, the Armenian Reporter. He has spoken on Armenian Public Radio, and most recently, he has been a reporter for CivilNet, run by the Civitas Foundation. If any of you were following the war in Artsakh, CivilNet was covering it on a 24-hour basis, one of the most important sources for independent news from Armenia. So, Tatu, are you there from Yerevan?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Marsubian. Thank you, Harvoski, for inviting me. And thank you, all of you. Today is the 24th of April, the day we commemorate Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. Now Armenia lives his probably most difficult time since 1920s. This is my understanding and this is my calculation. In 1920, we lost cars, we lost territories, and after that, tragic events. Now, in recent months, during the 44-day war in Karabakh, we lost up to 5,000 our soldiers, our sons. We have now more than 10,000 soldiers and persons injured. We lost territories, and now, in a way, we are humiliated, unfortunately. And now, in Armenia, we have a completely new situation. We have a completely new situation in Artsakh and a new situation in southern region of Syunik. In Artsakh, we have a new reality after the war and after the November 10 statement by Aliyev, Pashinyan, and Putin. And while traveling from Goris to Stepanakert, now you drive through the Russian peacekeepers, and close to Shushi, you can see Azerbaijani flags and Azeri soldiers. They are standing right 5 meters, 10 meters, and you can see the big Azeri flags. And now in reality, Artsakh security is guaranteed by Russian peacekeepers. And even we can say that in a way Artsakh is under the joint Russian-Armenian control, or we can even say under the Russian control. We have completely new reality in Syunik. Within the first few weeks of the war, the Azerbaijani side was able to restore the Soviet-Armenian, Soviet-Azerbaijani borderline. With Azerbaijan so close now, the residents in Syunik are asking how the security of their roads will be guaranteed. While before September 27, there was roughly 100 kilometers between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Today, Armenian village of Syunik region, Shurnukh, is divided between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And while traveling from Goris to Kapan in Syunik province, you can see Azeri soldiers, Azeri flags, and welcome to Azerbaijan signs. More than 20 kilometers of Goris-Kapan road goes through the Azerbaijani territories. This is the situation now we have, and this is the situation because we lose the war. And why we lost the war? First, Azerbaijan was stronger than Armenia. This is reality, and we should accept the realities in order to prevent new wars and new tragedies. The Azerbaijani army surpassed the Armenian army on the battlefield. The first and the foremost, the forces in the air were unical. 3 million Armenians were fighting against 10 million Azerbaijan, plus Turkey, Syrian jihadists, and Israeli and Turkish attacking drones. This was a technological war which we lost. Second, we lost the war before it started. We're losing since May 1994 when Russian brokered the ceasefire. The time was not on our side, and we didn't use the time rightly. Third, we have no friends, unfortunately. This is another reality. No one supported us. Since 1997 Lisbon OSCE summit, we were told many times that the territories we called liberated and historical Armenian, I mean the territories outside of Artsakh, I mean Nagorno-Karabakh autonomous region, that the territories must be returned. And since 2015, our strategic ally Russia pushed and pressure us to withdraw from that territories. Fourth, this Armenian elected government is elected Catastrophe. This government, run by Nikol Pashinyan, was not able to put the state on the rails of war. Fifth, Turkey supported Azerbaijan, and as I said, Armenia had no ally. Sixth, Turkish-Azerbaijani new generation war technology surpassed our capacities, and we should admit this also. Seventh, for more than a quarter century, Azerbaijan prepared for a war, Armenia prepared for status quo, and we believe that we can keep the status quo forever. We did nothing or did little to pay for a peace and solution and received the, as I said, humiliation. We wanted not what necessary for Armenia and Armenians, but what we dream and what we desire. This was wishful thinking, and this is not the first time, unfortunately, in our history. The same mistake as we did back in 1920, when we lost cars and territories, about 30,000 square kilometer territories, half of the First Republic of Armenia. And let me have some historical remarks. Armenians and Azerbaijanis, or Tartars or Caucasian Tartars, have had 5 wars since the first years of 20th century. The first Armenian-Azeri clashes took place between 1905 and 1906 in 4 major places: Baku, Shushi, Nakhichevan, and Yerevan or Ararat Valley. The second time, Armenians and Azerbaijanis fought against each other during 1918 to 1920s, when the 2 nations had a short-lived republics. There were several disputed territories: Karabakh, Zangezur, Nakhichevan, and Gazakh. Moreover, Azeris claimed Kars, as well as Zangibasar and Vedibasar, today's Masis and Vedi regions of Armenia. And by the way, when today Ilham Aliyev says that Ararat Valley and Yerevan is their historical land, it's nothing new in the Azerbaijani historiography. As I said, back to 1920s, they claimed Zangibasar and Vedibasar, which is today's Masis and Vedi regions of Republic of Armenia. And how the Soviets settled the issue when the republics become part of the Soviet Union. As we know, in 1920, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia became a part of Soviet Union. The Bolsheviks, Russians, formed Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast. Karabakh was placed under Soviet Azerbaijan. Nakhichevan received the status of autonomous republic and came under the control of Azerbaijan, and Zangezur, which was and is between Karabakh and Nakhichevan today, became part of Soviet Armenia in 1921. There was 70 years of coexistence. That was, of course, forced coexistence between Azeris and Armenians. We Armenians believed that the Stalin and Soviet decision was zero-sum game, and when the time has come, time of perestroika, glasnost, time of Gorbachev, we started the Karabakh movement, unification movement, and Karabakh War in 1991. The third time, Armenians and Azeris fought against each other between 1991-1994. The war ended in 1994. In May, Russia brokered the ceasefire. That was a disastrous war for Azerbaijan, first of all. They lost the control over Nagorno-Karabakh proper. Moreover, they lost 7 Azerbaijani regions adjacent to Nagorno-Karabakh, 5 fully and 2 partly. Moscow, this time as an independent Russia, mediated and forced the sides to ceasefire. This was also a zero-sum game, and Azeris waited for the time they could start a war and win, and they prepared for 25 years to start a war and to win the war. And the 5th war, 44th day, disastrous war ended also close to zero-sum game. This is not, of course, zero-sum game because we lost 8,000 square kilometers, but we keep now 3,000 square kilometers. We keep Artsakh, of part of Artsakh, but this is also close to the zero-sum game. And if we Armenians and Azerbaijanis want to avoid a new war, we should try to find a balanced and honest solution. This solution is not acceptable for Armenians, for Armenia. Now, we are the defeatist party, but I do believe that after several years, in coming years, Armenians do their best to try to conquer, to have control over Nagorno-Karabakh. And a couple of words why war started. As I said, the first Karabakh War ended in 1994, May 1994. Azerbaijan was the loser. It was a zero-sum game. Azerbaijan lost more than 7,000 square kilometers plus about 4,000 square kilometers of Nagorno-Karabakh proper, Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast. This status quo continued for more than 25 years, and Azerbaijan has three options. First, to accept the status quo as a fait accompli, and we understand that this was not acceptable for Azerbaijan. Second option, to continue negotiation process, and the third, to start a war. And why Azerbaijan started war? Azerbaijan started war because diplomacy. We lost the diplomacy, and we didn't our best to continue the negotiation process, and that is why Azerbaijan started the war and won the war. I would like to stop here. I can talk very long, but this is not one-man show, and I would like people to invite our discussion and continue this event with Q&A.
Thank you, Tatul, and thank you, Lily, so much for these informative and moving and detailed overviews of the recent past and the war in particular. I think I can speak for all of us that these were wonderful talks. I would like to encourage everyone who has questions to post questions in the chat box. And just to get things started, I'm going to pose a couple of my own. So Lily, one of the things I truly enjoyed, and I will give a question to each of you and then you can decide which of you will start answering, but I really enjoyed your characterization of Armenia as a millennial state. I think that speaks to the heart of the matter in regards to our current situation. Armenia is both ancient and extremely young, and it has suffered trauma repeatedly in the recent past. And so I guess my question to you is, what can a millennial nation do to strengthen itself, to restructure itself, to potentially reconfigure itself into the future? This is a genocide commemoration event, and we often discuss in committee that we wish to be able to be constructive in our discussions and to be forward-looking. So my question to you is that how can a millennial nation reconfigure itself? And Tatul, specifically to you, I really enjoyed the overview of the historic past, because I think that we need to be reminded of this ongoing conflict with the Azeris and the Armenians as often as possible. Sometimes I feel that Armenians don't know their own history well enough. And I recognize that as historians, we may know more than everyone else, but it is important to note, and I really appreciated your overview of these 6 conflicts. So my question to you is a little more incisive to the point of, how does Armenia negotiate with an Azerbaijan? And I recognize that the negotiations may be one-sided right now at this moment in time, but how does Armenia negotiate with Azerbaijan in the future when it appears as though we've lost so much ground and so much room for negotiation? So that's my starter question to you. So please, Lily, Tatul, whichever one of you is ready to answer, go right ahead.
Well, let me start. Well, thank you. You know, first of all, we should look at the map and understand that we can't have Armenia in another place of our planet. Armenia is between Turkey and Azerbaijan. This is I don't know. This is geography, and we can't have Armenia in Australia, in Europe, in America. And we should first of all accept this sad reality. Yes, Armenia is between Turkey and Azerbaijan. So how can we talk or negotiate with Azerbaijan? First of all, right now, the only thing that we can negotiate with Azerbaijan is hostages. All Armenian hostages should return to Armenia. As a journalist who traveled after the war to Baku, to Azerbaijan, who have a lot of Azeri colleagues, who knows Azerbaijan very well, I myself, I am not ready to talk anymore with any Azeri. And when the last Armenian hostage will come to Armenia, I can start to talk with Azerbaijanis and discuss everything. First of all Armenians should come to Armenia, and we should do our best to save Armenians from prisons, of Azerbaijan prisons. Now, I think Armenia is so weak to start negotiations. Now we need, first of all, we need new government. This government can't do anything in favor of Armenia. This government lost everything, and they can't negotiate with Azerbaijan. So we need new government. We need new elections, new government, and new negotiators. Second, we should recover Armenia's economy. Third, we should recover Armenian army. And then we can start a talk with Azerbaijan. How can we deoccupy, for example, Hadrut? It will not be easy because Armenia is now so weak and Azerbaijan is so strong. This is the same situation when we had in 1994, when Azerbaijan lost everything and we were the winners. And now we just changed our seats. And how Azerbaijan, the Azerbaijani side worked 25 years. They became stronger and stronger. They started the war and won the war. This is the reality. And also we should try to find new friends and new partners in this world. It will be Russia, France, Europe, America. This war shows that we have no friends.
Thank you, Tatul. That was excellent. Lily, would you like to comment on the question I posed at the beginning? And then
Sure.
Yeah,
I think Tatul's last remark there about, the friends comment is something that we hear often, and I think the war did heighten that sensibility. I think it kind of segues into my question quite well. So how can a millennial nation reconfigure itself? So I guess I find that the only way to do it is to take a holistic approach. So, for example, Tatun mentioned these core components of a nation in terms of nation building, how to be, if not independent, at least bring more, marbles to the table. So make sure your economy is strengthened, make sure your political situation is stable, make sure you have an army that can actually defend its borders. These are very logistical, technical things that I think, on some level, it takes some creativity, some foresight, but at the end of the day, it takes capital, it takes leadership, it takes a lot of things. And so I think on one hand, development is incredibly crucial here. So my current position, I write for a publication called EVN Report, and we're launching a new section called Creative Tech. So it's going to be highlighting this burgeoning tech sector, which is Armenia's fastest growing sector, for an English-speaking audience. So they realize that there's this need here to make sure that this industry develops in Armenia, not as an oasis, not, in synthesis with other sectors, with the government, with education, in a very holistic way to not only improve this sector or improve the economy, but make sure that, you're providing opportunities for young people and intelligent people to not leave the country, this brain drain that we've been seeing for the last 30 years. So development, I think, is one crucial area. And then I think the other component, which I think my talk kept going back to, was this sense of community, this sense of almost therapy in a way through the arts. And so every time we discuss the genocide, particularly in the lens of a diasporan, we go back to really the stories, the memories, the photographs, the songs, how this culture survived, how our ancestors survived from more of not necessarily artistic or cultural framework, but less on the tangible, less on, well, I live in Armenia, so this is it's a different way of thinking about Armenianness. And so I think, the thing that was so stark for me was finding myself in Armenia at that time as a diasporan, thinking about Western Armenia, genocide, how all these lands were lost, created this huge migration, let's say, and how people in Armenia, as a result of this war and this loss of land, are now reckoning a century later with these same concepts, really. Loss of land, becoming displaced. The first couple weeks of the war, we had a discussion with my friends of what do we call people from Artsakh coming here in Armenia? Are they displaced? Are they internally displaced? Are they refugees? It started, it kind of brought the two Eastern and Western Armenias together. So in a very roundabout way, I think that there are two main avenues we can pursue, and we have to do them together. So millennials, in terms of people, not necessarily nations, they have a reputation for being very good with technology because, we were born using the computers and phones. And so obviously Armenia is, it doesn't need all that much. It has a lot going for it in terms of the tech sector, in terms of science, mathematics, engineering. So we take that and we take a kind of therapeutic approach. That would be just my kind of ignorant background here. I'm not a politician, I'm not an analyst, but I think that having those two components come together would be a good starting place.
Thank you so much, Lily. And actually, that comment you just made makes me think of one. So I've been fortunate enough to visit Armenia more than once, and have also been fortunate to visit Karabakh. One of the things that seemed common to me was often Armenians in Armenia, when I addressed the question of genocide as the grandchild of genocide survivors, when I addressed the questions, often they brushed it off, or so it seemed to me, that we've dealt with this issue and we have moved on, we are into the next thing. And I wonder, and both of you, since I think both of you can address this, how much of the recent war can be brought to cement, as you mentioned, Lily, maybe possibly the meeting of Eastern and Western Armenians at last, finally. And can trauma be turned into a positive force for constructive change? And while I'm speaking, because I'm very conscious of the time, and I apologize, I'm gonna agglomerate a bunch of things here. So someone posed this question, and even though they think that you answered it, I'm gonna pose it anyway. How is economic success defined? Again, this is to both of you. And also, what is Armenia's relationship with Georgia? And is it even conceivable that Armenia could gain access to the Black Sea? So I'm just going to throw all these things out to you and leave it to both of you to comment on any or all of this, please. Thank you.
Sure. Well, just on the first point about the East and the West meeting, I could not turn off that thought the entire time. I was in Artsakh right after the war. I thought about it throughout the war, but like I said, it was a little bit just blurry. I felt like I was in a bubble. But from the moment we entered Karabakh, my friends, our car broke down, so we stopped, and a couple soldiers approached us, and they fixed our car. So my friends, as a thank you, decided to take out their instruments and perform a couple songs for them. And so this was 3 days into the war. And the songs that they performed were all songs, folk songs about, you might even know some of them, like Ahunik or Arim Sohak, like these songs from our Western Armenia repertoire about loss of these lands and becoming this longing for home through the eyes of, a bird or an animal or something that can go back to the lands, back to the mountains. And so the irony that they were performing that to people in a place that is about to become another remnant, let's say, was not lost on us. And so we didn't have to say anything. And I think they, I think hit in a way that if those songs had been performed prior to the war, and I've heard this from some of my highest Nazi friends saying they never would have associated it with in that same personal way. Because again, the genocide has been removed from, a lot of people's reality, even though many refugees from the genocide did settle in Armenia. So it is a part of that history as well, including my family's. But again, being surrounded by Armenians for the past century, it doesn't become this need to, it doesn't have the same weight as living in a diaspora trying to, preserve or maintain Armenianness and have this unifying factor of, cataclysmic genocide. So that is understandable, but I personally do see that these sentiments, these, meanings in these songs, these poems, these paintings are coming back to the forefront, anecdotally. Yeah.
Well, just couple of words. Half of Armenian population are descendants of Western Armenians. So
yeah.
So, but we should understand the reality. Well, from diaspora to Turkey is so close. Diaspora has no common borders with Turkey. And unfortunately, Armenia and Armenians, we have common borders with Turkey. So our understanding is a little bit different from the understanding of diaspora Armenians. I myself, I think I'm partly diaspora Armenian because I traveled a lot to diaspora and I know diaspora Armenians very well. That's why partly I myself, I think that I'm partly Western Armenian, but you know, well, I have a feeling that we should be very cautious when we are talking about Turkey. Of course, genocide is you know is part of our identity. Is part of our identity. But on the other hand, we have Turkey. From my home now to the Turkish border is about 40 kilometers. So the understanding of Turkey is different for Armenians, for Armenian who lives in Armenia and the Armenian who lives outside of Armenia. So we should understand this reality, and I think that yes, the genocide is very important for Armenians, for Armenian identity. But on the other hand, I think that it is not easy, but we should try to talk with Turkey if we want to have independent Armenia. Why? When we are not talking with Turks and Turkey, someone else wants to talk with Turkey, like Russians, like Europeans, like Americans. So for me, it's very important to have relations with Turkey, and having relations with Turkey means that our dependence from Russia will be much more minimal. So of course, genocide is important. Genocide is part of our history, part of our identity, but we should try to move forward and to have relations with Turkey. Because, as I said, Turkey will never leave our region, Azerbaijan will never leave our region, and the only Armenia we can have is between Turks and between Azerbaijanis, between Turkey and Azerbaijan. As of Georgia is a very important country for Armenia. Georgia is the way which connects Armenia to our strategic ally, Russia. And also, Georgia is the only way which allows us to have access to Black Sea. So Georgia is very important, of course.
Thank you, Tatul. I think I just want to reiterate what you just said. And I think that the geographic location is something that we all need to remind ourselves, despite the fact that we know where Armenia is located and we know historic lands, the hard truths of our really nasty neighborhood have to be recognized, and we have to act from that position. We cannot ignore the fact. And I really appreciate the point that you made, the final point, because I think Armenians seem to be split between those that say, yes, we should be supported by America and we should put our faith and trust in America 100%, or the other ones that say we should do it 100% with the Russians, and they're missing the middle ground, which is the must have relationships with Turkey. That is just an immutable fact of our geographic location. So I really appreciate that you essentially said,
probably this is not a right day to speak about Armenian-Turkey relations.
It's not the right date, but it's a reality. It's a reality. And I think, so we have a question about, will Armenia be able to fortify or create air power for itself? If I understood correctly what the person was saying. And now they're coming very fast, so I apologize if I'm missing some of them. And the other part that someone brought up, and of course, is the issue of unity within the country. In other words, the divisiveness that has been created not only by the war, but those that support the government and don't support the government. So do you see that there is potential for eventually healing the country by some kind of political modus vivendi in Armenia? Will the two sides, opposing political sides, come together?
Yeah, I have a feeling Tato will answer that much better, but the only thing I'll add to that is, I guess I'll add a little bit of positivity to what I think he might offer a bit more of a sobering reality. But in terms of the political instability, I would just personally, obviously we're in a little bit of a quagmire and it looks like things are not particularly getting better in terms of some sort of cohesive way forward, some sort of cohesive political, action. But to Armenia's credit, to Armenian society's credit, the only, I guess, two nice things I'd like to highlight, just coming from an American background, where I think Armenia does well, and I think it deserves some credit, is Armenian society, for all of its grievances, for all of its anger, all of its trauma, all of its agitation, because of the very nature of Armenian society being very homogenous, most of these arguments, being very pro one party or anti one faction, happen within the family. So the idea of something as extreme as, say, a civil war or some sort of intense violence happening is immediately diminished, because the very people who claim they want to, sever the head of this other person is like within their own family, and they sit and have dinner together. So that stops right there. And then on the more societal level, outside of the family, you have seen that for all of its faults, I was party to many protests, some of them planned, some of them just happening in and out, and none of them were violent. So as opposed to, say, in the United States, where any legislation could be used as a pretext for use of force from police, from whoever with authority, or it could take one person to take out a gun and immediately something happens. You didn't see that in Armenia. So I think there's some stability there that will, even when this coup happened, everything has an asterisk in Armenia, they like to say, because it wasn't a classic coup. As an American or as a European, even in Middle Eastern societies, you hear coup and you immediately have an idea that, okay, it was violent, there must have been casualties, and there was nothing. And so it's same with, we could talk about the revolution that didn't really transpire the way we wanted it to 3 years ago. Again, to its credit, was bloodless. So I think, just as this one positive thing I'm going to add here, is I think that right there is a sign that there are elements of Armenian society, I believe, civil society, even within the political framework, that I think do deserve some credit. And I think that is not something that should be minimized.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, statement by President Joe Biden on Armenian Remembrance Day, he used the word genocide.
Oh,
Hallelujah.
Yeah. So coming to the Armenian internal politics, I think that June 20 elections will solve the stability, and we'll have a new government. I don't know. The Armenian people will once again elect Catastrophe, but it's up to Armenians to elect Catastrophe. So let's see what kind of elections we will have. But I think now we have a situation when we can have a coalition government, because I don't think that any party will receive more than 40%. So probably in coming months, in coming years, we'll have a coalition government. Let's see what will happen. and let's follow the domestic politics.
Thank you so much, Tatul. I'm super conscious of the time, and we have gone over time, and I apologize. Can you unmute John? I have many other questions that have been posed, but unfortunately we need to wrap up the program. This has been a wonderful discussion, and I thank you both. And I know the comments make it clear that everyone who's participating today has appreciated your comments. So thank you, and hopefully we can continue discussion as Armenians amongst ourselves, amongst our families, and certainly as communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Thank you, likewise. Hope to meet you soon in person, Tatul.
Thank you.
I want to thank Lily and Tatul for telling your stories and addressing some very difficult issues. And again, thanks to Zoom, Tatul could join us from Yerevan.
Thank you.
And, you know, we had two journalists on, and I thought I was going to be able to scoop you. This is, as President Biden said in another context, a big deal. And I wanted to ask Harry Mazadorian to read the president's statement, if he could.
Who should read? Me?
Harry Mazadorian.
Okay.
Good. Can you hear me, John?
Yes.
Yeah. As Tatul and John both acknowledged a second ago, during the course of our commemoration program, the president's statement was released. And more than once in the statement, he used the word genocide. While he used some of the language used by previous presidents, this is a milestone in a statement. It's very short, and I'd like to read it. Statement by President Joe Biden on Armenian Remembrance Day. Each year on this day, we remember the lives of all those who died in the Ottoman-era Armenian genocide and recommit ourselves to preventing such an atrocity from ever occurring again. Beginning on April 24th, 1915, with the arrest of Armenian intellectuals and community leaders in Constantinople by Ottoman authorities, 1.5 million Armenians were deported, massacred, or marched to their deaths in a campaign of extermination. We honor the victims of Mezgeren so that the horrors of what happened are never lost to history. And we remember so that we remain ever vigilant against the corrosive influence of hate in all forms. Of those who survived, most were forced to find new homes and new lives around the world, including the United States. With strength and resilience, the Armenian people survived and rebuilt their community. Over the decades, Armenian immigrants have enriched the United States in countless ways, but they've never forgotten the tragic history that brought so many of their ancestors to our shores. We honor their story, we see that their pain, we affirm the history. We do this not to cast blame, but to ensure that what happened is never repeated. Today, as we mourn what is lost, let us also turn our eyes to the future, toward the world that we wish to build for our children. A world sustained by the daily evils of bigotry and intolerance, where human rights are respected and where all people are able to pursue their lives in dignity and security. Let us renew our shared resolve to prevent future atrocities from occurring anywhere in the world. And let us pursue healing and reconciliation for all the people of the world. The American people honor all those Armenians who perished in the genocide that began 100 years ago today. That concludes the statement. The United States has taken the moral high ground. Now our Congress and our president has acknowledged the genocide. The United States is silent no more. Mr. President, we salute you.
And thank you, Harry. And we remember your mom and the other survivors that we had with us for so many years. May they all rest in peace. You know, we had one more dignitary join us, former Representative Dimitris Generis from Farmington, I noticed was on our call, and I'd like to welcome him. in closing, I want to thank everybody for participating. I think this was an excellent program, and I think the committee did a wonderful job. And we hope to see you all next year, and it's going to be in person. Unfortunately, no chudeg this year, but we'll have a feast next year in celebration. For our benediction, I would call on Father Karabakh Telfalyan of St. Stephen's Church in New Britain.
Before I begin my prayer, I would like all of us to, sorry, there's a little bit. Before I begin the prayer, everybody please join with me. Close your eyes. And one of the icons that was created in 2015 for the 100th anniversary is a picture of Jesus on the cross and all the people, all the martyrs, all the Armenian Christians are around him, huddling around him, reaching out their hands to touch him and to grasp him and to be with him as one body, one family. Right now, before I begin my prayer, I want you all to close your eyes, go into that picture, stick out your hand and grab onto Jesus and hold him as I say this prayer, and pray it with me from your heart. Anun por, Yevort vo, Yevhokuinser po, Amen. Lord Jesus Christ, we are your children. We're standing before you. We're reaching out to you. We're hurting. We've been bashed in the teeth. In fact, in the words of your Psalms, all day long we're being killed for you. And our enemy stands around and says, where is their God? Unlike other nations and races, Lord, we have always decided to remain with you, to stay steadfast in our traditions and our culture, which is to be your children, to love you, to build a church anywhere we go, always to begin everything we do with prayer and to end everything we do with prayer. Now, Lord, our nation is hurting. In every century, multiple times, we are killed for the sake of righteousness. In this century, we were killed only a few months ago, and then back in 2016. And then early in the century, millions and millions of our people were killed for the sake of righteousness, for the sake of our faith in you. And in the 19th century, we were massacred for your sake. And in every century, we've been massacred and stood up for the faith. In the Battle of Avaray, we stood up. Even women put on military clothing and fought to preserve the faith in you. We wrote a letter to the Persians saying, nothing can separate us from the love of Christ. Now, Lord, you said to us in the Sermon on the Mount, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, Lord, come and answer us, heal our nation, heal the divisions, bring people together politically, physically, spiritually, in Armenia, in the diaspora, here in Connecticut. Bring us all together as one family, one very rich, wealthy family with the knowledge of you that makes us rich. Heal us physically, mentally, and spiritually. Bless us with your holy word. Cleanse us and purify us and forgive our sins through your body and blood. And bring us together physically that we might always be like one big, great, big, giant family in love. Now and forever and unto the ages of ages. And through the intercessions of all your saints who pleased you since the beginning, especially Holy Virgin Mary, St. John the Baptist, the Garabed, the forerunner, St. Stephen, the first martyr, and through the prayers and intercessions of all your holy martyrs of the Armenian nation, and through the glory of and through the intercessions of Saint George, and through the glory of your holy resurrection and your holy ascension, make us worthy to pray thankfully, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. In Christ Jesus our Lord. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, now and forever. Amen. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for participating in this event and thank those, again, thank the committee for putting it together. And I know we're all going to have a good day. Thank you.